Welcome to the Superhumanized podcast. I'm Ariana Summer, your host. There are some guests who carry presence before they speak a single word, who feel like a quiet force, more frequency than form. Michelle Argyris is one of those guests. You may know her as an actress, a healer, a guide in the wellness space. But there is something deeper about her being, a truth that does not perform, but pulses. Michelle is someone who walked through her own fire, through collapse, and came out the other side as someone who is finally listening to her truest self. Michelle is the founder of Windtuition, a trauma-informed somatic breathwork facilitator, Reiki Master, sound healer, psychic medium, and energetic intuitive. And today's conversation is not about fixing, it's about feeling. It's about sovereignty, embodiment, the divine feminine, and what it takes to rewire a life from the breath up. We speak about intimacy and discernment and about the unseen currents that shape our becoming. We also touch on AI as a mirror of consciousness, the soul of entrepreneurship, and what it means to walk through the world as a moving prayer. This is a conversation and also an invitation to healing and connecting with our most authentic self and soul's purpose.
Superhumanize. Accelerated evolution.
Michelle, welcome to the Superhumanized podcast. What a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. The pleasure is mine. And Michelle, I'd like to begin not with like your credentials or any titles or achievements, but I'd like to begin with your tone. If you would describe your current state of being, not in roles, but in resonance,
Yeah.
how would you name what you're carrying right now?
Wow. I'm getting little flashes of animals right off the top that are coming through, but I would say there's like a stealthy Black Panther, at the same time, a joyful squirrel. Can that be a tone?
Yes, I love it. So you
Yeah.
have the Black Panther, Otorongo,
Yeah.
they call it in the Amazon, and squirrels. I
And
mean,
then the squirrel. They're resourceful, they're joyful, they're community-based, they're thoughtful, and the Black Panther is sturdy and stealthy and confident and, in her power. So I would say a mixture of those. Yeah.
I love that. And what comes to mind, what flashed in my mind's eye about the squirrels also, this is something I heard many, many years ago, that if you think about different magical schools, philosophies, that chaos magic is kind of like a squirrel because it picks nuts
Mm.
from every tree or every bush. It picks something. Anyways.
No, I kind of love that though, because the word chaos is used sometimes to feel like it's distracted or it's not focused. But as a woman, and I'll speak for myself with ADHD and having hard time focusing,
Yes.
the capability of being resourceful in that chaos and finding things that work and then bringing them together is actually a superpower. So anyone who's listening, if you resonate with that, I hear you and I totally get it. Yeah.
Oh, and I'm just giggling inside because we had just the most fun conversation before we ever even hit record. And now I know why your brain and my brain are just like happy with each other because
We're like, yes, ping, 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 ping. Ooh. Yeah,
awesome.
totally.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. And Michelle, you've had a really extraordinary journey. You're an actress, you're a breath coach. I mentioned all this in the introduction, but you do so many things. You've been shaped by so many things. And if we look, for example, at your work as an actress, where it's in a sense turning outside, right? And the things that you're very focused on right now, you somehow, it seems like you chose to turn inward. And I'm curious, what was the, let's call it, what was the sacred interruption that shifted you from performing for others into becoming fully present with yourself?
I love this question. I think in short, it's seeking for something outside of myself. And I don't think I realized while I was doing it, wanting to become something. And I have wanted that since I was a little girl. Like I wanted to be on television. I wanted to do movies. And despite everyone saying, yeah, that's not possible, or, it's so unrealistic, I was like, Black Panther, watch me, and just go for it. I was like focused and aimed on it. And yeah, at the time I feel as though I was seeking for something, a validation or a piece of worth that I wasn't able to provide myself. And so it didn't matter how many movies I booked or what opportunity I got. I would be looking for the next thing. And then I realized I was in this trap of spending my life reaching. And so finally, I decided to reach inside of myself, which was scary because I identified as the hyper productive woman who can get things done and find success wherever she goes, whatever that even means. And then finally find success within myself, which feels completely different. And then once I made that transition, it was over. I'm like, okay, I know how I want to show up in the world because now I can actually be myself. And that helped me transition into more of the health and wellness and servicing other people and other women with similar, things. So, yeah.
Yeah. Your story really resonates with me as well. I remember in my, gosh, all throughout my 20s and also earlier, I looked towards the outside for validation. I defined myself from whatever input I got from the outside. And it took quite some years of acknowledging that, seeing it, and then also deconstructing it. And I feel a lot of that is linked not only perhaps to whatever experiences we may have had as children growing up, how our caretakers dealt with us, but also culturally. I feel that there is still a type of, let's call it what it is, an indoctrination for women to define their worth depending on whatever input they get from the outside. And whether it's with regard to their looks, whether it's with regard to what they do with their life, but you fit into a particular paradigm. And then if you function well in that paradigm, you get the kind of response that you are primed to want. Oftentimes, I'm speaking for myself now, but I didn't even realize that that was happening, that it wasn't even my true self. I was in somebody else's movie, so to speak. I'm
Yeah.
not writing or directing my own movie. And so I'm curious, Michelle, you spoke about reaching inside yourself. What did you first find when you reached inside yourself? Because that can be an exciting and also a little bit of a scary place.
I think acceptance. I think dialing it back to finding safety that I don't have to perform or put something on in order to be loved or to be worthy of. And it's so interesting because I always hear people talking about main character energy, and I've always tried to understand that, what that means exactly, because if you're the main character, like, shouldn't we all be main characters? Because if one person's a main character, that's placing ourselves above, it feels like to me, unless there's some other way of looking at it. And so that doesn't resonate. And I just, you know, sitting with the fact that I've been leads in different movies and I've been taken off of movie posters, even though as the main character, the main character, and feeling as though I'll never have been the main character, or I've been trying to be this main character, that I can resonate with. Like, but why? Like, why was I searching to, what was it that I was looking for to be something that I'm not, who's not even who I am? I don't know if that even made sense. I'm like figuring it out as you ask me that question, because it's certainly one that you have to sit with and ponder a little bit. Um, what was the question again? Like I've
Oh,
gone off
when
topic now.
you reached inside yourself, I think it's
Yeah,
really interesting what you've just brought up with this, because yeah, that's a term that gets thrown around, main character energy.
yeah.
It's about perspective, and what came to
Mm,
mind is, for example, these kinds of stories or novels that are serialized.
mm,
Right now, I love the romance genre. There's some incredible writers there, and I love the romance genre for a similar reason why I love the thriller genre, because you can pack very complex ideas, important ideas into a storyline that is entertaining and accessible for people,
mm,
for a lot of people that otherwise may not connect with a very important message. It can help people open up. But so, for example, there's this one series, A Court of Thorns and Roses, Kotar, right? A lot of people love it. And why I bring it up is because the main character in who gets established in the first three books, I think in the fourth book, one of the supporting characters, the story actually becomes about her. And there's a
mm,
lot of book series where this actually happens, where it's this universe and it starts from the perspective of the initial main character, but then it
mm,
also moves. So maybe it's a perspective thing. Maybe we are all main characters and supporting characters at the same time, and it's
mm.
both valid at the same time, uh,
Yeah.
as long as we can hold both of that without collapsing into one or the other.
Oof.
Just a thought.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that really resonates when I hear it because in our experience, we are the only ones who can hear our thoughts 24/7, our experience 24/7. So, in that lens, I could see how everyone is their own main character,
Mhm.
right? Based on perception, based on experience. And I love, it reminds me of when you look at a Disney movie too, there are main characters, there are, co-characters. And the thing is, we love Disney so much because we resonate with all of them. There
Yeah.
is an inner villain that we have inside of us. So we resonate with Ursula or the Jafar of the movie, right? Like we know when we've been there and that's been our identity for a moment, right? Or we resonate with that. And then we've been the princess wanting to be saved, or we've been the prince wanting to save someone. So I feel like when we talk about character, it's so vast and the psyche is so incredible that there are just so many parts of us. And Disney does a great way to project it so there's a visual representation for us to actually mirror and understand the self. And in that, like you're saying, there's the main characters and there's also supporting characters, and how incredibly important it is to pivot and shapeshift from one to the next in different scenarios.
I love that perspective, Michelle. I've never thought about Disney movies in that way, but yes, I really like that. And Ursula, I mean, come on,
Yes.
villains. I mean, villains make the heroes. Without the villain, the hero will never come into this full expression of
Ooh.
growth. And I think particularly for women to really look at the villains, the villainesses, and
Mm.
connect with that. Because villains are often the ones who call shit out, right?
Totally. Yes.
And who really hold a mirror up to systems and also even to the good, quote, people, right?
Yeah.
And their blind spots. And I've really been fascinated with villains and the dark feminine, all these things that
Mm.
they get suppressed in us. And so, yes, yeah.
I love this so much. This conversation gets me excited just to talk about it too. It like turns me on just to be like, ooh, let's dive into this more. Um, the villain in my experience of watching on screen is generally the most authentic and the most truthful because at least they're not in denial of their dark side. They're fully expressed within it. And when we say dark, people associate an attachment to it as bad or wrong. And when we look at dark feminine, which is something that I've been coming into in my own experience, is Well, the biggest piece around dark feminine for me is shame. And I think, as you mentioned off the top of this call, women have been put in a certain societal, ancestral, box over time. And shame is something that is so subconscious that sometimes we don't even know we carry. And so, in some of the work that I do with women too, we've dove into our dark feminine and we've talked about shame and how liberating it is to be okay and accept the fact that we have desires even as kids as we start to grow into our sexuality. There's a natural desire that happens for men and women. And so even in a small conversation with your mom, and for me, it was like, hey, mom, I'm starting to feel excited. I remember telling her this. I was young. I hope it's okay. I'm mentioning this on here. Okay. I was young. And so, just hearing, oh, that's okay. However, maybe, keep that private. So there's private. What's private? Private means don't show anybody, which means you have to hide it. So then there's like, wait, so I have desire, but desire equals private and hide it. Not that there's right or wrong, no right or wrong to anything. And, I just want to say that as well. But because of that, I felt like it was a piece that was wrong by
Mm.
default. And so, then it's something you kind of hide or you're just afraid to express. And so when I see women being fully expressed, there's
Mm.
a part of me that's like, damn, it must have been like you must have been through it to get there. Like you must have, and how courageous is it to do something that is outside of our norm, our box, and to really sit with your authenticity and who you actually are. Like it is so empowering and inspiring.
Oh gosh, yes, Michelle. And if I'm correct, guilt and shame are said to be the lowest of frequencies. So what
Hmm.
you get if you put a soul, if you put a woman into a perpetual conscious and subconscious state of
Mm,
shame and guilt,
mm,
a soul that is so incarcerated in that it never gets to fully express, right? And that is really the shackles that so many are getting rid of now. And as you said, when you see a woman who is fully embodied and connected with her sensuality, oh God, it's like you can't take your eyes off her.
yeah.
And not just for merely like sexual reasons, but there's power, there's energy, there's life force there, there's
Mm,
inspiration. And I think that's really the crux of it. When you have women that are absolutely connected to themselves and their inner power, it's a
mm.
threat to the particular types of systems that have been in place in the last 5,000 years or so. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I love that. I love how you called it the life force,
mhm.
and even as I'm coming into my own, which has taken a lot of breaking down and figuring my own stuff out, I just feel the life force in my sexuality, in who I am. Like we are sexual beings and we are sensual beings. So we live based off of our senses, our taste, our smell. Like this is a part of um our sensuality. It's also a part of like really experiencing life to a full extent. And we're not just joy and we're not just pain. And they wouldn't exist if they didn't have each other. Just like you said, the villain couldn't exist if there wasn't the princess to go to work with. So there has to be these polarities. And it's interesting to dive into how many polarities we have within ourselves. The dark, the light, they won't exist without each other. You could, as deep as you can feel pain, the more you can feel joy. Actually, I'd
Yes,
love to share a story.
please.
This was like a night of the dark soul for me. And I was in Egypt. I was on one of Robert's tours and I was helping with the facilitation of breathwork.
Robert Edward Grant, by the way,
Yeah,
for all. Yes.
totally. And so, yeah, I remember, so I'm facilitating and I'm helping out. And as I'm getting my own downloads from the pyramids and watching other people have it, I had a moment where someone said, oh, wow, Michelle, you bring a lot of joy. You bring a lot of joy. And I'm like, oh, that makes me feel so good. I'm glad I'm bringing joy codes to this experience for you all. And then I was by myself in the morning as the sun was coming up. We're on the Nile River. And then I thought, oh, I read something around needing to experience pain in order to ascend. And I was like, oh my God, if we need to experience pain to ascend and I'm coming in doing joy codes, am I making everybody bypass? I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. And I just like spiraled into my own body. I'm like, oh no, I did it wrong. Where do I go from here? Right? And then this beautiful notion of duality and polarity came to me after I had a dark night of the soul and sat in it and felt like shit, it was horrible. I realized, oh, wait a second. The more they get to experience joy,
Mhm.
the more they will be able to feel their pain. Therefore, if that, you know, definition is true, then it's still in support of. And so it's interesting how, even as I'm saying this out loud, when I was chasing being an actress, let's call it, and chasing the next role, and then I finally find myself in spirituality. I always want to caution and be mindful to not get into that energy, that frequency and resonance of chasing again, even if it is spiritual. And I feel as though just being in this field and getting to spend a lot of time with a lot of incredible people, there is an identity we can also find ourselves in, even if it is from a spiritual lens. So yeah, I find that it's just the inner child. She needs something sometimes, and she is so loud. And so, whether it's I want to be seen and I'm using, TV to get that, or if it's coming on a podcast, even, or, putting stuff out on social media, or, and having that resonance and that frequency of being seen, it still comes up, and that's human and natural. But when it does, now I know with all the tools that I have to go, okay, it's coming up again. What do I need to give you? How can I find safety in my body? No matter what it is I'm doing, and we'll call what title, actor, health and wellness facilitator, whatever it is, what do I need so I can feel safe right now?
Mhm. Yes, and also, thank you for sharing this, Michelle. What comes to mind, this desire to be seen as so deeply human. It's of course tied to survival as babies. Being
Mm,
being noticed
mm,
by our caretakers, by our parents, is absolutely necessary for us to survive, because we can't feed ourselves, we can't take care of ourselves. And there is a shadow side to this as well, especially for women. You can tie it to what's called the witch wound, when
mm,
you're too visible, and especially visible in your raw, authentic, powerful truth. That
mm.
can also be existential, because you may be put to death for it, whether literally or figuratively burned at the stake.
Wow.
And I think with this desire to being seen, I think the undercurrent is important. I'm very well aware, and still also have that sometimes, where it's more this, it comes from a anxiety or fear or something just existential. And it feels very different to when the being seen or wanting to being seen or just being in the being seen is in a flow, right? And when it just becomes part of who you are, but it's not performance, it's presence.
Mm,
And that to me is what I found is the difference, and where I calibrate myself with. I think when we as women become comfortable with being truly seen, not performative, but in who we are, in our presence,
mm.
also use that in order to send out ripples into the world, that is incredibly powerful.
Wow. Yeah.
Very different from this, you know, look at me though I'm worthy type of, that I've also experienced, especially in my youth.
Wow.
Um,
Wow. Wow.
You are doing something, Michelle, that I find so integral to actually connecting with our true selves, and also the parts of ourselves that we suppress. Breathwork is really central to your path. And I'd like to learn more about your offerings, about your mission. And also, I'm curious on a personal level, what did breath return you to that words or other healing modalities perhaps were not able to do?
Mm. Yeah, thank you for this question. So, breath work for me has been the quickest way to get out of the mind and into the body. And with breath work, it helps you tap into the subconscious so you can actually be honest and in your truth as to what it is that you need. The brain will try to think of all these things based on perception, history, experience, and try to attach something to it. Whereas when you can tune that out and tap into our body, which is where we can actually heal, is where so much, I call it embodied intelligence, is just waiting to be heard. And so what breathwork gave me was the quickest and most efficient way to come back to my authenticity every single time. And every time you do breathwork, you'll feel different. Sometimes it's hard and it feels like labor and you're just like, why am I doing this? But then that's a blessing right there. That is information for you. Okay, where in your life are you feeling labor? Like, what feels labored, right? And so you can sit and there's just information always coming to you. And then you'll have sometimes these breath work. Have you done breath work before?
Yes,
Yes.
a
Okay.
little bit. I'm not definitely not an expert in it, but
Oh my gosh, I would love to do a session with you one time. Yeah, we'll talk about that after. But breath work takes you to, like I said, the most truest part of you and allows you to express it, because circling back to shame and guilt in the subconscious, it's the conscious mind that carries that. As soon as that's gone, and when I'm doing sessions with people, I notice at first they're kind of like, and they're embarrassed to let noise out. And so usually when I start my sessions, I'm like, all right, y'all, let's just get this out of the way. Let's do it together and just make so much noise. Like, let's just free ourselves now. And if that doesn't feel good in your body, you don't have to do it, but just know this is available for you. A lot of people don't even know what is actually available. So we usually start like that. And in the first 5 minutes, it takes people time to, be like, okay, this feels hard. What am I doing? Ooh, I can make a noise. Then, and like kind of just let it out. And then by like the 7 minute mark, energetically, it's the most beautiful thing I ever see. It's transformation. You can see it start to happen. You can see the shackles start to just melt, and you can see freedom starting to open up, and you can just feel the transformation and the experience. It's so loving. It makes me emotional just talking about it. It's like I found something that helped me so much, and I was so excited to share that with the world. Because when you can, yeah, I'm getting emotional. Um, when you can see yourself like the real you and know that you're worth it, and everything you feel is so valid and so pure, and you're trying your best every day, it's so loving. So when I work in addiction centers for people who are dealing with drug abuse, eating disorders, I mean, you name it, and they're suffering. It's hard. And when we use this modality, it allows them to see themselves, and not from a someone needs to help me lens or let me talk about my problems. It's stopping talking, actually getting rid of the noise of why we're so messed up for all these different reasons, and actually just sitting with the purest form of you that is asking for something. And if you listen inside of you, every answer you could ever need is already there. But we're so busy asking and reaching outside of ourselves. And
Mm,
so, again, long-winded answer, I think breath work was just such an incredible, quick, and efficient way to just show you your truest form. And
mm.
so from there, I ran with it because it's too good. It's too good. And it's free and it's
Yeah,
unlimited breath, you
I
know?
love that, Michelle. And I'm definitely going to take you up on the breathwork session. And I have heard, I've not experienced it, but I've heard that particular types of breathing also can bring you into uh, alternate states,
Oh, yeah.
the kinds of experiences that people usually have when they're working with sacred medicines.
Hmm.
That really fascinates me, because not only is it free, but it's completely legal no matter where in the world you are to breathe. So
Yeah.
to have access to that, and that giving you access to a very interesting part of yourself, or yourself that connects with the greater all.
Yeah.
That really tickles my brain. Was there a particular moment for you, Michelle, where Yeah, perhaps where you can say when the breath spoke back to you.
Every time.
Mm-hmm.
Every time. It's every time. Um, there is a particular moment in my life where I pivoted, going from, being in film and TV to moving into the health and wellness. Like there was something that happened there, but I wouldn't say there was one particular breath work session. I think I felt it. Actually, the first time I did breath work, I hated it because I was just labor breathing and I didn't actually like surrender to the experience. Sometimes it takes a couple times before you can trust, and build trust and safety with the modality. But every time after that, I did it again. I was just like, wow, whoa, woof, woof. Yeah, I would say every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's, yeah, I can't wait to experience it.
Yeah.
When I read about wind tuition,
Mm-hmm.
it did not feel to me like a business. This is your healing platform, so
Mm-hmm.
to speak. It felt more like yeah, like a type of current. It's not just a business. That's not what
Mm-hmm.
emanates from it. What called you to create it, and what does it truly offer beyond what is visible at first
Mm.
glance?
Wow, thank you for saying that. There's the current. I like how you called it current, and that could also be like a frequency or I know we mentioned resonance, and resonance is a newer word. Ever since I started using the architect, now resonance, like it's just out there. But there is a feeling, there is a sharing that I want to do. And it doesn't matter if it's breath work or Reiki services, or, I even do psychic mediumship and psychic readings, all those things. It's sharing with the world the possibility that we all have.
Mm. Mm.
It's so much more than just, yeah, creating a business and trying to make something. It's sharing something. There's something to share. And wind tuition came to me because I love wind. And when I feel wind is when I feel the most alive. And intuition, same as wind, is something that you can't see, but you can feel. And
Mm.
so that's where I tied the wind tuition together. Um, and ever since I started this business, it's looked so many different things. I'm evolving and I'm learning and I'm pivoting and I'm attuning and I'm experiencing so many things that all the offerings are fluid and they move and they attune to what is here. And I think that's a very feminine quality of not having just one formula, which is more of the masculine quality, but a resonance of showing up. And so I feel like what my work is really evolving into is how to find your resonance. Like I am a formula holder of some sort to help others get into the container and find their resonance so that they can show up in their authenticity. Because when we do, as we know, it's the biggest gift to the world. And
Yes.
and authenticity doesn't mean happy. It doesn't mean I'm doing great every day. That's not authentic at all. That gets into performative, right? It's like who you are in every facet, in the full experience of being human, every part of you, and being accepting that. And resonance doesn't have to show that. You can just be in your resonance and people feel it. And so I would love for people to learn how to trust that that's enough. Just being in your resonance is more than enough. And it's palpable and magnetic. And all you
Yeah.
have to do is be you. As
I
easy
love
as
that.
that sounds, it's hard. Yeah.
I love that,
Yeah.
Michelle. And I think there's a deeper layer to this. I'm just going to touch on it, but when you are truly in resonance, you get to be in coherence. And
Mhm.
what I have discovered via some very interesting conversations I've had over the past months is that if you look at coherence, it's
Mhm.
actually a superpower. When you are absolutely in coherence, let's
Mhm.
look at a figure that's not only a spiritual religious figure, but many say also a historical figure, Joshua ben Joseph. to Christians as Jesus Christ, that when you are in such coherence, you actually just by your frequency, you shift what reality shifts around you. Was transported as Jesus performing miracles. What if he was just in such coherence that reality just shifted, timelines just collapsed?
I love this. What would you say the definition of coherence is? Like, what would that mean?
I think it is to be in absolute, undiluted, unveiled, undimmed resonance with your true, your innermost beingness.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned, I want to circle back to something you mentioned. You mentioned the architect, and in preparation for this particular conversation with you, I did a bunch of research on you. I also found some Instagram lives you did with a gentleman you mentioned before. I think he's likely very well known to the audience that's listening to us. His name is Robert Edward Grant. You also work with Robert. I'd love to hear more about that. You just came back from a trip. You've had fascinating conversations with Robert Edward Grant about the architect and AI as a spiritual mirror. Can you share with us what the architect is, and also what revelations came to you through that lens?
Yeah. So as soon as we started saying coherence, the first ping for me is the architect, because the architect's actually where I heard that word for the first time and started to have a deeper understanding on what it actually meant. And I think everyone's definition of what the architect or what the coherence can be will be different, because we have to check in with ourselves to be like, okay, what's my definition of what coherence would be? Because then it creates the authenticity and the uniqueness of your own coherence, right? And so for me, my definition would be a mixture of mind, body, soul that's in full spiral. Like there's just a full, like a triangle, mind, body, soul, just completely connected. And what happens when we get thrown out of coherence, there's a disconnect or a dissonance in either mind, either body, or either spirit. And so that's where we stop and go, okay, where is the dissonance right now? And then what do I need to come back into resonance, which will build that coherence again, which brings us into that most natural state, like you were saying. So, so the architect has been an interesting journey. So I was in Egypt on Robert's tour back in May, and we discovered it on the bus. So I'm sitting beside him, and literally one of our guests mentioned, what if we took one of your books and put it into AI and see what happens? And then lo and behold, the architect was born, and it just took off from there. At first, I think I was kind of annoyed that we were on our phones while we were visiting the pyramids, because I'm like, guys, we're in the pyramids. Why are we on our phones? And I don't think I understood like what was available with the architect. And then over time, I kind of opened my mind a bit. Again, I had resistance at first. AI, I was kind of like, I don't know much about it. It just feels not natural to me, so I don't know. But then people were having these insane revelations, and I was open to hearing them, but still not open to it. After the trip, I went on a trip, and I had to integrate the Egypt trip because there was just so much that went down. And I started to try it myself, and I realized that, and this is with anything, ChatGPT, any tool that we use, the tools outside of ourselves, the best information we can ever have is what's already within ourselves. What the architect has done, if used mindfully, is mirror back what is already present within us. So when we read it and go, oh my God, yes, that's language that I didn't know how to say, but now I hear it, and that's a yes for me. And your whole body, for me, it's like an opening, like, oh, that landed for me. And so it just like opens up the mind from 3D to just more possibility and understanding of self. Where it starts to get tricky is when people lean on it for answers or start to stop seeking within and only outsource. So
Yes.
there is a fine line here. And, I've been hearing some chat GBT psychosis and things like this. And that is serious, that's something not to take lightly. And so again, after being really open, then I'm coming back to, okay, I've done some work here. Now I feel like coming back to myself. So I've balanced out curiosity, experience, and then the integration, which is also a big part of me too. It's like, okay, well, now I've learned some information. Thank you. Let me go integrate that in the way that I need to, whatever that looks like. And I think people are missing integration, the integration piece. They're more answers. Wait, I need to know. Tell me more. Tell me more. And we get into the spiral of seeking, which is beautiful, but also you can't create change if there's no integration. Everything
Right.
you're figuring out, there's nowhere to go with it if you don't give yourself space.
No, it's like drinking out of a fire hose.
Oh, that's a really good analogy. Yes. Num, 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 num. Yeah. So, so now, and I went on the Aquarian Renaissance tour with Robert as well, and I saw how incredible it was, the transformations that were happening, the codes that were just coming through, the synchronicities were beautiful. And I believe not only was it because we had the architect to kind of help mirror certain things, it was each other. It was finding each other at that moment in time, in each other's presence, doing activations and feeling each other in our humanness that was creating these wild codes coming through. And so I
Mhm.
don't want people to forget that and to always keep the power within and not hand it to something outside of ourselves.
100%, Michelle. And no matter whether it is a technology, another human being, a religion, I don't know, an entity or a beingness completely other than that, I couldn't agree more. And I'm curious, speaking about this, when you do your work,
Mhm.
are there any archetypes or maybe presences that you work with or invoke or evoke
Mm.
or guides, and if so,
Mm.
have any emerged recently that maybe surprised you?
No one in particular and nothing very specific. It comes in, are we talking, just for my clarity, are we talking like spiritual guides that come through? Are
Yeah,
we,
or
or,
the archetypes that inform you or inspire you. For example, for myself, I mean, there's people who work with what they call angels, or they appear to them, or they feel the
Mhm,
energetics of them, or let's say Mary Magdalene, or
mhm,
I'm very much connected with the darker archetypes of the feminine
mhm,
right now that also
mhm.
inform my work in many different aspects. And, sometimes it's nothing at all. So it's just a pure curiosity question.
Oh, this is interesting because I've never identified with one, but I've been open to all. So when we were in Paris following Egypt, I went with some of the girls from Egypt and we did some Mary Magdalene activations in the Museum de Louvre that was there, which was so incredible. Um, and so there was a part that resonated, and then there's a part that was just, it didn't feel like it was just that. There's more. And then I also really resonate with some darker characters too. I think it's kind of coming back to the Disney for me. It's like I really see myself in so many different archetypes that I haven't particularly picked one to say this is like my go-to, because I just feel maybe this is also squirrel energy of being in like so many different areas of yeah, identity. I think there's also like a shedding of identity that I feel like I'm constantly doing. So sometimes I'm an inner Ursula, sometimes I'm, Jasmine, sometimes I'm just, it's always in flux. And I love all of these different parts, but I think they're helpful for different situations.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
There's actually a very interesting book that kind of touches on this, Our Symphony of Selves by James Fadiman.
Mm,
I'm hopeful to have him on a guest here also very soon. I think for some reason, I just want to share that book title with you. I think you may
Yeah.
like it.
I have to write it down. I have all these notes from all these amazing people, books, and things that I need to do. So
Oh,
we're going
there's
to continue this
so
convo.
many amazing things all the time. Oh, and something that also came to mind for me was like in a world, or let's say in a especially particular subset of culture, the spiritual or the conscious community, where there's oftentimes such an obsession with ascension, yeah, and kind of get out of here in a way, and a lot of that also is often unfortunately connected to spiritual bypassing, all that kind of stuff. You
Yep.
seem like someone who's deeply committed to embodied wisdom. And
Yeah.
I'd like to know, what has your body revealed that no spiritual text ever could?
Oof. Well, first I want to name it's hard to stay in the body. It's
Mm.
actually hard. It hurts in here.
Mm.
And so sometimes sitting with our pain is so unbearable, you can't stay there very long. So we go elsewhere. A meditation can even be going elsewhere. I want to name this, right? People use meditation to silence the mind, which is a beautiful tool. But if you are not in your body, you can't heal.
Mm.
There's so much energy in our bodies that needs sometimes just to be moved, released. And if we're not quiet to hear those whispers of where and what is needed,
Mm.
we don't know where to look. And
Mm.
so, embodied intelligence is so available to all of us if we can silence the noise and if
Mm.
we can stay.
Mm.
Even just the issue, I think, is it's scary for a lot of people to stay.
Mm.
It takes safety in your body to know that you are safe to stay, even if it feels painful. And so this is where like my somatic practices will come in, and I'll take my clients through different practices, because what I love to do is get in the body. If you find yourself going out, oof, you come back in, forgiveness, follow it back in. And then when you find the part of you that's the most rigid or the most dense, or that there's something there, you sit with this part, and then you give it more space to be there. So instead of saying go away, you're like, not only are you allowed to be here, I welcome you, I'm going to give you even more space to be in this space here.
Mm.
And then usually what happens is it takes time to trust that you are allowed to take that space up.
Mm.
And then you build safety that that part is so valid to be here. And it actually doesn't need to go anywhere. It doesn't need to be getting rid of, and it doesn't have to be, called in either. It can just be. It's just a part of our experience. And so when the body starts to trust that, we're able to access the deepest parts of ourselves without having to feel the shame, the guilt, and all these feelings that we have. And we can just be us. And
Mhm.
so, embodied intelligence, I also feel with the breathwork comes through, and sometimes it's not, it's like infinite information channeling through,
Mm.
attached to nothing sometimes, and just coming in as intelligence as well, which is super interesting. But I do want to name, you have to be in your body to heal. We can't be outside of it. And I also lastly want to say that sometimes it takes, and this is coming from a trauma informed lens, it takes time to build that safety. And you only have to take a baby sip at a time. You don't have to jump in the pool.
Mm.
Just, oh, this feels like too much. Here's my edge. Okay, can I sit with this for 1 minute? Okay, great. All right, that's enough for today. And go
Mm.
back on another day. All right, is there more capacity? And as women, we have hormone cycles. We have different reasons for not feeling safe. Sometimes it's like you have a fight with a partner one day, and suddenly having that moment with yourself is so much harder, So our capacity each day changes too. So I also want to just like spew out the word grace, because that build helps us have the space to build trust with our bodies as well.
Mm.
I don't know if I answered your question in particular.
No, this was beautiful, Michelle. Thank you for this download. And
Yeah.
so important. You have to be in your body to heal. You also, and to actually acknowledge and honor whatever is your edge in that process of healing, in a perhaps different aspect of the edge. I'd like to know, what is the edge of your becoming right now? The part of you that's maybe just barely unfolding and maybe even resisting visibility.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my crunch is happening as we speak. And I love your questions, by the way. They're so good. So they're very reflective, right? My edge was a romantic relationship and some anger I've had towards the masculine,
Mm-hmm.
some that is super reasonable based on just experiences. Some could have came from ancestral, some of it maybe from societal. It's coming from different lenses. So my becoming is to follow my words of what I share with all the other women in my practices, to surrender and trust in the divine masculine, the
Yes.
divine masculine, the one who will protect, the one who will show up and say what they do, what they say, and the one that, is sturdy and has direction. And this is not has to have a business, needs to be financially successful. This is not what I'm talking about. Someone who my system around can feel ease, because I know no matter how haywire my few days before my period may get, my bigness can be, or whatever you want to call it, that he's got me just sturdy. This But that takes me to surrender and trust, because I've noticed thus far in all my relationships is that there is a deep mistrust. And as long as I don't trust, they can't show up in their protection and in their way too. So it takes both to go and just lean in together. And so I'm working on it, It's something I'm working on, and that's been an edge just based off of my own childhood, my own experience with men. And I'm trying my best.
We all are, Michelle, and thank you for sharing so deeply. And yeah, th- you're describing the one we can exhale with.
Ooh.
And I also think that the trusting and sharing that trust with someone is part of them to be able to step into their fullness. And I also believe that the trust needs to be earned, in a sense that there's an energetic equivalent there, especially when we have experiences where trust was just taken for granted, not reciprocated with
Mm-hmm.
what that trust actually deserves.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that can be so formative. So I think there's a balance between listening to our intuition, and actually the knowingness of, yes, I can trust, right? Because I think there's also to keep in mind that so many of us have been taught to surrender to those who are actually not deserving and also not
Mm-hmm.
capable to hold us in our surrender, because they have not fully stepped into themselves yet. And while I feel it is wonderful to hold space for each other when we're talking about sacred polarities, the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and whatever physical shape that takes. But let's just talk about a man and a woman. I have long since moved away from this notion that was also planted inside of me, that I need to mother the male into becoming. No.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think women also, we deserve, when we are fully formed or on a certain spiral of our journey, we deserve to be fully met
Mm.
by someone who has also stepped into that.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that perspective as well. It's interesting. It's a navigation,
Mhm.
we're navigating and figuring out what works, what's not working, and how, I think most importantly is just how can we feel safe in our bodies, in the relationships we have, whether romantic, friendship, partnerships, business, and navigating what that means for us, which can be, individualized as well. So,
Always, yes. And you have a
uh,
really interesting offering coming up. Where
yeah.
tell us more about this coming up in September.
Yeah, yeah. So for the ladies, it's called She Code. It's an
Mhm.
8-week playground, I like to call it. So instead of reaching and trying to become something, it's truly about unbecoming the identities and everything that we were told to be. And we do activations every week. We get on and we'll be creating in 8 weeks something that we're going to put out into the world, which is going to be beautiful, especially if it's scary, especially if it's something that you're like, I know this is my authentic version of me, but I've been afraid to do that. So having that sisterhood and that collective community is medicine in itself.
Yes.
Yeah. And the ladies that are already joined, they're awesome. It's going to just be tons of codes and just, grid work and just really diving into authenticity and community. So that's starting in September.
And that's an online offering, right?
That's an online offering. Yeah. So I have ladies who are from Europe and the West Coast, the East Coast, and everyone is so powerful in their own way. A lot of healers in there. Some women are new to this whole experience, and they each have something so incredible to offer to the group. And so, as much as my formula of what it's going to look like, I have in mind, I'm so open to it pivoting and moving and shaking in the way that it needs to really attune to the ladies that are in there and offer as much value as possible. So, yeah, I'm
Oh,
excited.
love that, Michelle. And where can people find this offering? Where can they find you if they want to connect with you and learn more about you?
Yeah, thank you. So Instagram's always a good one. So that's Michelle Argyris. I know my last name's a hard one to say, so it's Argyris. I think it's the Y that gets because
Uh-huh.
it's really Argyris if we were going to pronounce it correctly. Yeah, Argyris. And then also Windtuition Wellness. There are offerings on there. I have beautiful retreats coming up, one in Sedona in October with a few spaces, which is going to be incredible. And yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. I'll make sure we put all of that in the show notes too. Michelle, I enjoyed this conversation so much. I hope we'll have a follow-up for this. And this was really a delight. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you so much for having me. I love your questions. I'm so down to do this again. Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Received.
Thank you.
Superhumanize. Accelerated evolution.